All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Thrilling 30 Legends Class Swerve and Flanker. A very lovely little figure here. I really remember at the time that this guy and Cosmos especially were really like the talk of the town in terms of like, oh, look, Legends Class figures can be good instead of just being kind of like smaller budget versions of bigger characters. It's like, oh, you could actually use the Legends class to, make versions of characters that were actually supposed to be small so they could like notionally scale with other figures. And these Legends classes, when they started doing these in Thrilling 30, were not exactly the same as the Legends class figures we gotten previously. These Legends classes were more of like an amalgamation of the, old Legends classes and then also the Scout class, whereas these guys kind of replaced them. So they're a little bit smaller than Scout classes. They're definitely pretty equivalent to like what our core classes are now, but they were more beefier than like the original Legends classes that they had, started doing in like the Unicron trilogy and stuff like that. But he turns into a nice little pickup truck here. Now, this guy is pretty heavily based on his IDW design, especially in robot mode, but I don't know that we ever saw his vehicle mode in IDW, and if we did, it was probably some Cybertronian mode. So the vehicle mode is really more of a based on the original Swerve, but still, it's a really nice little update of the character nonetheless, just because he was a pretty prominent character in the comics around that time. And like we hadn't really gotten like a good update of Swerve before this, just because like pretty much every time they had like a transformer that turned into a pickup truck, they would like recolor it red and call it Swerve and call it a day, whereas it really looked absolutely nothing like him in robot mode. So it was a nice breath of fresh air to actually get a version of this character that at all looked like his G1 counterpart in robot mode. But yeah, no, he's got a nice little truck mode here. It rolls nicely. I added that sticker on the front there that wasn't originally there, and it's pretty good. I mean, if you look at it from the side, you can kind of tell that the like front hood is just sort of like hovering over the front wheels and isn't actually attached in any way, but from most angles you can't really notice that. And Flanker here is a nice little mini-con partner as well. Now this guy is loosely based on Sky High, I want to say, the G1 Micromaster, but the colors are kind of all different. It's just sort of his design in robot mode is pretty based on that figure, but they're kind of separate figures. If we ever got a new updated like Sky High figure, I would hope that they would release another one in this color scheme as a new updated Flanker, but I don't know how likely that is. But yeah, he turns into a nice little drone here. I've always assumed it was a drone since it doesn't have like a notable cockpit or anything like that, but it does have a little peg under here, which I guess kind of looks like a little like camera spying down, but you can also fold this down if you really want to peg him onto the top of Swerve for that combined vehicle mode, which looks stupid, but it's an option. You can do that. It's nice that he's got the port up there in case you want to put other weapons, but whatever. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here they are with Kingdom Sideswipe, just for that standard size comparison. Here they are with G1 Swerve. I don't have a G1 version of Sky High to show off with Flanker, unfortunately, but here's what the two of them look like together. Definitely, it's using a lot more of a brighter sort of pinky red rather than the darker red of the original Swerve, just to kind of match sort of how he looked in the comics. So I don't know, maybe if they did a new updated Swerve, that it would be a little bit closer to his G1 color scheme, but that's what they look like with him. And then here they are with our Legacy Gears mold, who I assume is eventually going to be turned into a new version of Swerve. We haven't really, like, aside from like hubcap and pipes, like, we still haven't gotten a new version of Outback from the new Brawn mold, but I guess like that figure's still fairly new. I'm assuming they'll do it eventually, but I definitely think they'd have to retool a few things on this figure, like the chest and the way that the head is to like really make it accurate to Swerve, because like in the original cartoon, Gears was really a pretty big departure from his toy design, whereas when they did the updated versions of the season 3 mini bots, they were really much more based on the proportions and aesthetics of the original toys. So as a result, Gears and Swerve looked quite different in the cartoon, even though they were notionally based on the same kind of toy design, whereas like Swerve was much more close to the original G1 design and Gears was much more of a departure. So since this guy is so based on the cartoon version, I think that they'd have to retool a couple things to make it really look like the G1 toy design. But yeah, that's more of a discussion for robot mode, really. But yeah, that's what he looks like with them. To get onto transformation, we'll start off with Flanker. Again, he's very, very simple, just like a Payload was. You pretty much just take the little front end section here and fold it up like that, and then take the wings and fold them up onto his back, and there you have him. He's pretty much just a little plank of a robot underneath the jet here, and have him standing up like that. Yeah, he's not amazing. I mean, I like his gun mode a lot, and his jet mode is cool, but the robot mode, pretty much just being underneath the jet, is not great, but whatever. And then for Swerve, basically what you want to start with is take this whole back section here and just unfold it like that, and then separate the legs. Then you can take the arms here. They'll untab from this central section here, so you can just untab them and then bring them out to the side like that. And then you take this whole section and it will compress in on the body, and then you take the hood of the truck and it will double hinge down to sit on his back. And there we have Swerve in his robot mode. And yeah, you can definitely see the influence of the IDW design, especially in the sculpt of the face in this mode. I think that it really captures the jovial nature of that character pretty well. But yeah, in terms of articulation, unfortunately the head can only really like tilt up and down. It doesn't have any rotation at all, which is kind of a bummer. The shoulders are on ball joints, which can rotate around and go out to the side, and then also use that transformation joint to go up a little bit before they start like pushing the bumper section out of the way. He's got ball joints at the elbows, which give him a bicep swivel, and about maybe a degree over 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. Nothing at the waist. The hips are on ball joints, which can go forward and back and out to the side. He doesn't have a thigh swivel, unfortunately, and there's definitely room for one. And with him, I feel like it really matters, just because the the placement of the like ball joint in the leg here is so compressed into the body that you can't even really use the ball joint as like any slight bit of like way to widen his leg. So it's like that's pretty much the range you're getting, which is not enough to like really make him stand well in candid poses. So it's like a thigh swivel is definitely something this guy really needed. And then his knees, because of transformation, can pretty much bend up all the way. And then he's just for the sculpt of the feet, they're in that slight A stance, but there's no ankle tilt or anything. So yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I have about this guy is like, yes, I'd like his head to swivel, obviously, but really it's mostly just that thigh swivel that I think he really needs. But otherwise, he's a pretty lovely little figure. I really like the way that he looks. Now, Flanker does also have the other tertiary mode to turn into a weapon, and his is kind of interesting. Pretty much you just take this whole body section here and kind of unfold it down like that, and then double hinge it up like that to cover up the head, so that this piece here kind of slots into this piece behind the head here, just like that. It doesn't like stay super well, but mostly gravity kind of works in its favor. And then you can just fold down that handle again and give him to Swerve to hold there. And yeah, I think that's a pretty cool looking little blaster there. I don't necessarily really like it for Swerve, but for other bigger figures to wield it, I feel like it looks pretty cool. It just doesn't, there's not really as much connection between Swerve and Flanker as there was with like Cosmos and Payload, for example, just being both like space themed. These two are just kind of like, oh, that's the one they decided to put with him for whatever reason. But yeah, it's still a fun accessory nonetheless. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, for some standard ones, here he is again with Sideswipe and also with Core Class Rat Trap, just so you can see kind of how he stacks up with a modern Core Class figure, pretty much the equivalent of today's Core Classes. Here he is again with G1 Swerve, so you can see what the two of them look like together. And, even though he's based mostly on the IDW version, I do feel like that, he's still a pretty good update to the original Swerve design as well. Like the IDW version was not a huge departure of like how he looked in the G1 cartoon. So I feel like that still works fairly well. And then here he is again with Gears from Legacy United, just so you can see, I definitely feel like, there is going to be a bit more retooling that has to be done to this guy to like really make him a new Swerve, just because like the chest is easy just because this piece just kind of pegs on, so you could just make it more like a Swerve like chest, maybe one that kind of mimics this sticker detail a little bit better. But the way that the head works, I feel like is going to be kind of a challenge, just because what I hope that they don't do is just like make a similar size and shape head sculpt to Gears and then just have like the Swerve face kind of in the middle of it, because his always really sort of felt like his head was sort of like inside this box, whereas like the G1 toy design or like the G1 cartoon design for Gears kind of made this whole section just like a big stupidly shaped head. So it's like it works well for him, but I don't know how they're going to do it with him because he kind of needs like those blocks on either side of his head. Like, they could just give him like a sort of normal sized robot mode head because it would fit into the same cavity in vehicle mode. But then he would sort of feel like he's missing all the like junk around his head that I feel like is kind of crucial for the Swerve design. So I'm not entirely sure how they're going to do that without attaching it to the head, just because like there's, otherwise they'd have to like attach it to these shoulder pieces, which wouldn't really work. Or I don't know. It just seems like that might be a little bit more difficult. And I hope that they actually do it properly rather than just like, giving him a big head sculpt with the Swerve face in the middle, like the G1 design, or like just not giving him the stuff on the side at all. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see how it turns out. But yeah, either way, we don't even have any like leaks or announcements of that figure yet. So that's a little bit further down the road. But in terms of this figure, he's a fun little toy. Again, my biggest thing about him is just that he doesn't have thigh swivels. Like his legs have gotten a little bit floppy throughout the years, which I think is made a little bit worse by the fact that he doesn't have thigh swivels, because it makes him hard to balance when his legs are like flopping around a little bit and you can't like really cleanly adjust the feet to be sitting perfectly on the ground how you'd want them. But yeah, he could use a head swivel, he could use thigh swivels, but otherwise he's just a pretty fun little cute toy. And Flanker is fine too. I don't think it works super well with him. I think honestly it looks better if you like put him in bigger figures' hands, just because it doesn't really have anything to do with Swerve and he's a little bit disproportional, but he's a fun accessory nonetheless. But either way, that's pretty much all there is to these guys. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Thrilling 30, Swerve and Flanker.